Good evening and welcome to another fantastic week right here on Sitback with Shaq and Andrew. We're coming to you live on Channel 1 Dialogue TV and live on YouTube on our Pod Hub channel. Hello to each and every one of you.
Absolutely. I do hope the weekend was solid. What am I saying? It was rock solid.
Emphatic. Emphatic.
It was an incredible weekend. I know a lot of people, lacking a lot of sleep today. So, I saw it in office because obviously they had stayed up late.
Of course, almost everybody. I mean, and it was honestly really, it's something that we needed.
Absolutely.
It's something that we needed. I mean, a great job, the Sri Lanka winning the Asia Cup, and of course, fantastic job by the Sri Lankan female netball team.
Yeah.
Right? They have won the Asian Championships, also defeating Singapore. Brilliant. In front of a mammoth Singaporean crowd. I actually watched the game.
Oh, really?
I did.
63-53.
That's right. And then I think in the second quarter, Singapore was actually leading.
Oh,
and
wow.
they were leading. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. And of course, cricket is on everybody's minds today, clearly because this is something that, to be honest, none of us expected.
Yeah. And the things, the way it started, didn't really leave much hope.
Yeah, I know. So
anyway, we'll talk about all of that.
We have a great guest coming up on the show, and if you haven't actually read his articles on ESPNcricinfo, you are missing out on a lot of cricket stuff.
That's right. We are of course talking about Andrew Fidel Fernando. There he is. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Shaq. Hi, Anu. Nice to be with you guys.
And also, he's authored a book as well.
Yeah. So in our previous season, of course, we had Andrew on the show talking about the book.
Yeah.
And there was great stuff, of course. Lots to talk about as far as the match is concerned. And Andrew's covered Sri Lanka cricket for a very, very long time. We're going to get into all those details and what he thinks about it as a scribe, so to say. We'll give in all those details. In the meantime, we're going to quickly get into our poll for the show. Once we're done with that, straight dive into the conversation with Andrew Fidel Fernando right after this.
Welcome to the universe of the Raz, where you explore and discover whatever you want, whatever you need. All you can imagine is on your feet. When miles are abridged, happiness is unlocked. Discover your Dharaj.
So much. Welcome back to the show. As always, start of the show, we have a poll that basically fits well with the subject that we talk about.
Absolutely, and today is no different. So without further ado, let's check out today's poll. Here we are. Was the 2022 Asia Cup win reminiscent of the 1996 World Cup win? Yes or no answers only. Please WhatsApp your answers to our hotline 077-669-1590. And at the end of the show, we'll tell you exactly how the responses stand.
And we'll speak to Andrew on this particular question when we're just about to reveal the survey poll, the poll survey, so to say. Andrew, welcome to the show. And man, what a match it was yesterday.
Yeah, it was nuts. I think there was a lot of exciting matches leading up to that game. Obviously we had very close finishes against Bangladesh, against Afghanistan, second to last ball finish against India, and it almost seemed a little bit too easy. I think in the end, the final, the way that Sri Lanka controlled the match was quite. And particularly, batting first, which is really, really difficult in Dubai. The stats over the last couple of years show how incredibly hard it is to win batting first on that, at that venue. I think it was before this match, it was 3 out of 21 matches had been won by the team batting first, and 2 of those matches had been against Hong Kong and Scotland. So not particularly strong teams.
Right.
So yeah, it was quite spectacular what Sri Lanka were able to pull off, and I think it's difficult to understate how impressive that was.
Andrew, when the team obviously left to Dubai for the Asia Cup, not many people actually gave them a chance, did they?
No, I mean, I probably myself included, to be honest. Not that Sri Lanka were a terrible team. I think we all knew that they were building up to something. I just did not expect them to build up to something quite so quickly in the course of this tournament, and for them to find so many aspects of their games that they got right. As fast as they did. They won 5 in a row, which is very difficult to do in T20s anyway. And even a very good T20 international team doesn't win 5 in a row very often. So that in itself was quite special and unexpected. You look back at Sri Lanka's T20s in the last couple of years, and you can see that they've got Wanindu Hasaranga, one of the best in the game. Dasun Shanaka was getting himself into form as a batter through the course of 2022. Barnuka had some bits and pieces performances. Kusal Mendes has been in good form across formats, across Test and One Day as well. And so the fact that they all put this all together during the course of one campaign was something that I think I didn't expect. And then things like you saw them going to the Asia Cup without someone like Dushmantha Chamira, without Vinora Fernando. Kasan Rajika was injured as well. So they went with a very, very inexperienced team attack. And so you're really worried how they were going to close out matches, how they're going to go at the depth, which had been a problem even when Chamira and the kind of frontline fast bowlers had been fit. But their death bowling has been really impressive. It's all these kinds of little areas that Sri Lanka haven't been quite getting right in the last couple of years. There's suddenly just the pieces seem to fall into place in this tournament. And I think the data kind of team gets a lot of credit. You saw in the matches how the data analyst and the coach had these codes going to the players with bowlers ball and the kinds of strategies should be used. And so they've kind of gone down that route, which is nice to see. Not many Sri Lanka teams have committed to data-driven cricket. And then they've kind of won through really difficult situations as well. It wasn't just about data; it was about coming through in really hard spots.
Andrew, how good does Chris Silverwood look right now?
Yeah, I mean he's definitely been he's overseen some really good performances for Sri Lanka. I mean, go back to the Australia series. The ODI series win. The test matches, they did okay as well. They won one apiece against against Australia and Pakistan. But I think that you also have to go back to Mickey Arthur, who put that big emphasis on field and fitness. And I think he helped turn that aspect of Sri Lanka's game around as well. And you saw the fielding last night was the best I've seen Sri Lanka field.
Oh yeah.
Probably for years.
That's true.
I mean, that fielding performance was out of this world good. There was just not a mistake. You literally could not fault them a little, a single, apart from maybe Mahesh Theekshana dropping the ball on a return take. That was the only mistake that they made, which is, a crazy thing to say. And then they saved so many runs with the ground fielding, caught all their catches, were so fast across the outfield. So I think they've built to this over a couple of years. And it's the result of not just Silverwood, others working with the team as well. I think a lot of support staff should get the credit as well.
I think Sri Lanka obviously went into the Asia Cup very much under the radar. I mean, even the media experts and the commentators, they never spoke about Sri Lanka as even getting into the second round. For that matter, it was just always India, Pakistan, India, Pakistan. It's a funny fact I found out today, Andrew and Anu. India and Pakistan have never played an Asia Cup final.
Really?
Yeah, so they've never played an Asia Cup final.
Okay.
Right? So, and that's something I found out. I was like, wow, okay. So do you feel that the rest of the teams obviously didn't really give too much notice for Sri Lanka because they might have thought that this is just a walkover?
I mean, I'm not sure I would say they would have thought it was a walkover. I think people do take, particularly in a tournament like the Asia Cup, there is a little bit of respect that Sri Lanka still get. So that whole thing with world class bowlers and all that kind of stuff, with Khalid Mahmood, the Bangladesh bowling coach, saying that Sri Lanka didn't have any work. That was a little bit of a media kind of
Right.
beat up. That was like drummed up to create controversy where perhaps there wasn't that much.
Right.
I think Bangladesh are well aware that Sri Lanka are a solid team. They've been beaten, but they've had a very, very good rivalry over the last few years. Afghanistan as well would have taken Sri Lanka very seriously. Perhaps when it got to that India game, India may have thought that this was a team that they should be beating quite easily. Just because India have beaten Sri Lanka, so comprehensively over the last few years. Earlier this year, we saw, 3 T20s against India. India absolutely bossed those games. Sri Lanka didn't get close in any of those games.
Yeah.
So perhaps there was maybe the one game where Sri Lanka were underestimated a little bit, but I don't think as a whole people thought that it was a walkover. But I don't think anyone thought that Sri Lanka would make the final. I think everyone thought the Asia Cup was basically an excuse to have 3 India-Pakistan matches.
Yeah.
And the ACC probably would have hoped for that to be the case, because that would have
Yeah,
really helped their broadcast
all the
ratings.
advertisers in India too
Yeah.
were hoping for that. Andrew,
Pakistan,
so what changed? The thing was this. So all of these teams, let's say, underestimating Sri Lanka, thinking that this is going to be the easy match, was not without reason. In my opinion. So something changed, something clicked, and what do you think that was?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It wasn't without reason. I think going into the series, it was 2 matches out of 11 that they had won going into the Asia Cup of the last 11 that they played. So, very, very poor recent record. And what changed, I think, is those things we talked about. I think like the death bowling, they got right. The top order, we got a lot of runs from Pathum Nissanka and Kusal Mendes, so they got openers who were kind of being that engine. Pathum Nissanka was kind of that anchor role kind of player who wouldn't necessarily be hitting a lot of boundaries and getting Sri Lanka way ahead of the scoring rate, but he would make sure that there was substance to Sri Lanka's innings, and he was allowed to do that. Anchor role play is a little bit of a controversial topic in T20 cricket. Do you need them?
Right.
But Sri Lanka had the other batters batting around him. Kusal Mendes was batting very fast. Dasun Shanaka and Bhanuka Rajapaksa, the others, who were providing that firepower lower down. That allowed someone like Pathum Nissanka to be someone who gave that those engine room kind of runs. So they found a style of cricket that worked for them. It wasn't one thing. It was several things that went right at the same time. Mahesh Theekshana continues to be a really economical bowler right through the innings. He bowled some really good death overs in this tournament. He was like frequently outstanding in the power play. Doesn't always get a lot of wickets, so he doesn't get highlighted as much. But I think he's one of the real keys to this Sri Lanka team. And then, Sri Lanka got through until the first Pakistan game. Wanida Hasaranga hadn't had that great a tournament. He produced a little bit with the bat. He'd been economical, but he hadn't been like a big wicket taker. And there have been other bowlers that come in and did that role instead. Dushan Madhushankar getting 3 wickets in that India match. And even Andrew Fernando, who's been a little bit expensive, and I think it was, he did get dropped towards the end because of his economy rate, but even he had contributed with the ball, got some key wickets, and of course scored those runs against Bangladesh. I think there's a lot of things that went right, and it felt like a team that wasn't really playing to a formula at the start, but then kind of found their feet, found their rhythm as the tournament went on, and then settled into their roles really well, and we saw them play this role incredibly well in the final.
I saw your tweet yesterday, I think when Dasun Shanaka got out. where you said that, you know, if Sri Lanka are going down, I mean, that you're really happy that they're going down with blaze of glory by attacking. Because there was nowhere at any point in Sri Lanka's innings that they decided to basically, you know, cut back and start consolidating and put on a partnership. Yes, they put on a really good partnership, Bhanuka and Wanindu, but that was also a super fast partnership they put on together.
Yeah, and that Bhanuka Wanindu partnership was really, you know, really hugely defining for the match. You know, when you're 58 for 5 at 8.5 overs. A lot of teams, particularly T20 international teams, will go into their shell, will try and get to 130, 135, 140, and give their bowlers something to bowl at. That's
right.
The mentality. But I don't think you win a lot of T20 matches playing like that. You know, as good as Sri Lanka's spin attack is, I don't think that they would have done themselves any favors by just kind of playing within themselves and getting to 130, 145. What they did instead was, Wanindu especially led the way on this, was just to go out and keep attacking, keep playing their shots, and keep taking risks. You know, that was a really risky partnership. They played some, you know, quite risky runs. Wanindu was backing away, hitting through the offside. Bhanuka was playing maybe a little bit more safer at that point in the innings. He was finding boundaries behind square on the offside using his touch game. But it was both intelligent and just there were a lot of calculated risks, I think, there. And that really was the partnership that turned the match around. And it was great to see that they understood that, you know, T20s is not about just like ambling to a total. Yeah. It's about being really aggressive and like going for gold. And it probably helped that, you know, they went into the tournament being underdogs. This is the way that underdogs can play. If they were favourites and they'd be 58 for 5, maybe they would have been a little bit more worried at that stage. Yeah. But because by getting to the final, they'd already exceeded expectations, there was a little bit of freedom about their cricket, and that probably helped also.
But how good was the captain? You know, not his performance, but his captaincy.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone who I think in the past we've seen that he's not necessarily like got the strategy down 100% all the time. Yeah. But what he is really good at doing is getting good performances out of his players. And, you know, this year when he's led from the front as a batter, you know, he's been probably Sri Lanka's best batter through the course of 2022. Hit some, you know, that Pallakale innings against Australia, everyone will remember, but he's also hit. But he's also hit some very impressive knocks against India, you know, earlier in the year in that bilateral series. You know, Sri Lanka lost that very badly, but that's Sri Lanka was the star performer there. So he's someone that I think players are happy to play for, and someone who doesn't play with a lot of ego. You know, like I was really impressed with him bowling death overs. I can't remember which match it was. It might have been against Afghanistan when you know or was it against India? Anyway, one of those two matches when you know he doesn't really have the tools to bowl at the death. But one of his fast bowlers was going for runs. I think it was Andrew Fernando, and he took on a death over just to try and kind of, you know, get something back for Sri Lanka and try and bowl a cheap over, even though that wasn't, you know, many captains would just give that over to somebody else so that their figures don't get ruined. Yeah. And those kinds of decisions, and also, you know, his batting is also fairly selfless. You know, he comes out and bats the situation virtually every time. And when you've got a captain who's doing that, I think it's easy for other people to rally around him and easy for a positive team culture to be created where the team goals are put above everybody else's you know, personal kind of ambitions. And Shanaka has very much been that ego-free captain. I think there's a lot that he can do in terms of strategy going forward, but right now, I mean, he's you know, he's doing a spectacular job, and the turnaround in both ODIs and T20s kind of is testament to that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's definitely grown into that role, but there's so much that he can still do. And something that we obviously want to also know in terms of Shanaka, you don't see him as a figure that sort of overpowers the rest of the team like you do with other captaincy material like the Rohit Sharmas and the Baba Azams or whatever. He just mingles in with the boys.
Absolutely.
And someone just says, "Hey, I'm the captain." So,
Actually, at most points, you're wondering, no, wait a minute, who's the captain?
Who's the captain?
Because it's just a bunch of friends playing cricket.
Exactly.
That's what works.
I think Dasun Chanaka very much is a bowler's captain. Someone who gives the bowler a lot of leeway and a lot of freedom in what they're allowed to do. Lets them set their fields. Just puts an arm around them and kind of gives them a little bit of doesn't intervene too much in the middle of an over, and he's not like for example, an MS Dhoni who would be in the bowler's ear telling MS Dhoni at times would have bowlers almost on a remote control, telling them exactly what to bowl and what to do. I think Shanaka's the other end of the spectrum, just lets the bowler do what they're comfortable with, and being such a young team and being such an inexperienced attack, he has to do that. They don't have. They have to rely on what they know how to do, and try and execute the skills that they have really well, which is what fast bowlers especially did nicely. Where Dasun Chanaka has a little bit of leeway, particularly when someone like Dhananjay De Silva is playing, is he has a little bit of options. If one bowler is not quite on their game, either Chanaka can bowl, or Dhananjay De Silva is a very reliable limited overs operator. He can come in and bowl some cheap overs. We saw that in yesterday's match as well. Bowled some very key overs that helped ratchet up the pressure on Pakistan. And so he uses his options nicely, probably with a lot of input from the data team as well. As far as we can see, it seems like there is quite a lot of kind of matchups and basically like data being crunched, ball by ball, over by over. And and that is where the lack of Dasun's ego also comes into play. He's able to take that advice.
Actually, the data, you're absolutely spot on, because even the commentators picked up on it, because it looked like the research had been done to the last T. All the I's had been dotted, the T's had been crossed. You knew exactly who to bowl to whom. So I think with that kind of big data being crunched, and an inspiring captain, and everybody kind of now going in on a high, the World Cup looks very promising.
But the Sri Lankans actually do have a happy headache on their hand right now, don't they? I mean, they still have Dushmantha Thamira, who needs to get into the squad. They still have Andrew Fernando. I don't know exactly what his current situation is with injury. He should get into the squad. But they also have a tight-knit unit at the moment that just shocked the world and won the Asia Cup. What do you do?
What a problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think if Dushmantha Thamira is fit, he immediately gets into the 11 for me. There is, particularly in Australia, his height, his pace, those things are going to be pretty crucial. And also he's done the job for a while.
Right.
We know that what he can do. He didn't play a role in this campaign, but he's been a standout performer for a long time. And I think you need to give him, he gets back into the 11 immediately. Avishka is a little bit trickier. Who does he replace? I think now you don't really want to upset that Pathum Nissanka, Kusal Mendes top order combo. Maybe Avishka comes in at number 4 in place of Danushka Gunatilaka. But then, Danushka's, fielding yesterday, as we saw, was also something that is a big positive for him. And Avishka's fielding, isn't quite on that level, and Avishka will need to up his game on that front to kind of make himself more of a viable option in the top order. Avishka, when he gets his batting game going, there are very few as destructive hitters as he is. I don't think Danushka's batting has a ceiling like Avishka's batting. Avishka's batting has a very high ceiling. So I would be very tempted to throw Avishka in too, but on conditions that his fitness is there and his fielding is there. And Danushka also gives you another option with the ball, of course. So that's I think a difficult problem, but I'm very excited by the prospect of Dushmantha Chamira from one end and Dilshan Madhushankar from the other end. I think it's been a while since we've had two 140 plus bowlers, one right armer, one left armer from either end. I don't think that's ever happened in Sri Lankan cricket as far as I remember. There haven't been many left arm fast bowlers for Sri Lanka. So apart from Basu, obviously didn't operate at that pace. So yeah, that's going to be a fun prospect in Australia. Obviously the pitches are going to be very different. They're going to be much bigger fields. Yeah. So where I think Sri Lanka have some things going for them is that their spin attack is really solid. Between Wanindu, Mahesh Theekshana, and if Dhananjay De Silva plays, then a third spinner who are good at squeezing, who will be really hard to hit out of those grounds. All three of those guys will be really hard to hit out of an Australian cricket ground. So there's that positive, but also the batters also have to then hit those boundaries. So it's going to be a very different challenge on those kind of drop-in, faster, bouncier, clean pitches. But I think it's something that now that Sri Lanka have this kind of momentum behind them, they'll be looking forward to very much.
But don't they usually go in terms of selection horses for courses? But we just played at UAE, batting paradise. Quite contrary as to what we're going to get in Australia, in different parts of Australia, that too. Yeah. And can you actually take these horses for the courses that are available there?
I like your terminology.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I think these horses will do all right in Australia. Actually, Chamira, especially when Chamira comes back, they have height and they have pace.
Yeah.
And Chamika Karunaratne also being a pretty good third pacer who hits the deck hard, which is the kind of bowler who does well in Australia. I don't think on the fast bowling front they need to be too worried. And I think between Theekshana and Hasaranga, it's very rare that they don't face a challenge well, and I think both of them will be very much up for the challenge in Australia. I think it's going to the bigger adjustment more than for the bowlers. I think the bigger adjustment is going to be for the batters to deal with the faster conditions and to deal with the bouncier conditions. That's going to be the bigger issue, I think. We haven't seen, it's just in this tournament that the Sri Lanka batting order clicked as a unit, whereas the bowling attack actually has been, when the front line attack has been playing, has been pretty solid. It's the batting that has been the more recent revelation, and so that is going to be the bigger issue. Whether they can quite, if you had someone like a Kusal Perera who has played well on Australian track before, maybe you go in with a little bit of confidence. But obviously Kusal is not available for this series. He's just undergone a big shoulder surgery. So there's going to be a lot of kind of untested batters in Australian conditions, and that's going to be a big issue.
We have a question coming in, Andrew, from Jerry. The politics within Sri Lanka cricket, including interference in team selections, player removals, etc., has also had a big impact on the psychology and performance levels of the players. Has this reduced now with the coach and captain allowed to take the lead, resulting in this significant improvement of the game?
So, Sri Lanka went through a very bad patch of serious interference in selection, particularly under Tilanga Sumitipala's kind of board presidency. That very much happened. Now I think it's less the case from what I'm hearing. There's not so many interferences. It's the selectors have a little bit more leeway, are less kind of have less pressure on them to choose certain players. So that's been a positive. I haven't seen any really crazy selections the way we used to see them in past years. So that's I think that issue has largely been, or at least for now, does not seem to be a big issue.
We're just about a month away, believe it or not, for the World Cup.
Yeah.
And just 4 weeks away before the World Cup starts. Now, obviously, everybody's talking about how great Sri Lanka played, how great Sri Lanka, of course, five matches on a trot on T20 is not a easy feat, and they've achieved it. Where do you see the chinks in the Sri Lankan armour from the performances that we witnessed in the UAE?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably at that number 3, number 4 position. Charith Sri obviously had a fantastic tournament in the last T20 World Cup, but I think it was very clear that he'd gone substantially out of form in this one.
Right.
And in this tournament, and then obviously was dropped for the last 2 matches, and Andrew Fidel Fernando came in. So it's that kind of 3-4 spot which I think they need to figure out. I still think Charith Sri Lanka is such a quality batter that he should get his place back. I think he's shown enough over a few months that the few months that he did well, that he's got a game that's very dynamic. He gets in and he starts hitting boundaries early on. Within his first 10 balls, he's already got a very good strike rate, which is not a common thing for many Sri Lankan batters. So that is someone who's, when he's on song, he adds a lot to the team, also adds some bowling. So I think maybe that is the big issue. The other thing is, can someone like Dilshan Madhushankar maintain this level of performance in a much bigger stage on pitches that he's never bowled in before in Australia? Dushman Chamira has bowled there before, has a lot more experience about him, knows what he's doing. But there's his seam bowling partner, and I think that at the moment that will be Dilshan Madhushankar. Will he quite be on par? I think those are the other questions. I think the spin attack is quite solid. I'm not really worried about that. And I think with Dasan Shana, Kabana, Rajapaksa, Charmik, Kanratne, and Wanindu Hasaranga, they've got a really good middle and lower middle order. It's those 3-4 spots and that second seamer, which is a little bit of a unknown.
Who do you think will actually miss out on that flight to Australia, and who might actually, Dushmantha Chamira for sure has to come in, but apart from just Dushmantha coming in, who do you think in the Asia Cup winning squad most probably will end up missing out on that flight to Australia?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think they probably will now take Pramod Madhushan after the start that he's had. Perhaps Andrew Fernando misses out. Andrew Fernando, fantastic test match bowler, but he was quite expensive in the matches that he played, despite having contributed quite significantly at times to this campaign. He was a little bit expensive. I think Asika probably will miss out when the bit better quicks come back. Other than that, I don't think there'll be many changes on the batting front. I can't think of any big issues. Maybe someone like Andrew Fernando, who was in this squad but didn't bat, will make way when Avishika comes back. I don't see many changes. I wonder who the second kind of keeping option will be apart from Mendis. With Chandimal probably isn't going to make the squad. Kusal Perez is definitely not going to make the squad with the injury. I wonder who the second keeping option they will have, but I can't think of any kind of big names that would miss out apart from the ones that I just mentioned.
India obviously announced their squad today, and they've actually gone the complete opposite what Sri Lanka are. They've stacked their team with seniors, with very little sort of newcomers coming into play, and I'm quite surprised. I'm sure you're also that Mohammad Shami actually missed out on that flight to Australia. I have no idea how they could actually leave him out to Australia, but that's how it is. Like I said, polls apart with Sri Lanka's possible team to Australia and India.
Yeah, they've got. It's crazy the amount of riches they've got in India. Someone like Ishan Kishan, who has been, both in the last year series that Sri Lanka, when India came to Sri Lanka and India played here, and in the series that they played in India earlier this year, to have players like him and Shreyas Iyer and for those guys, Sanju Samson, to not make the team is quite is insane. You know, like I think all three of those batters probably would make the Sri Lanka squad.
Yeah.
But you know, but then they've got the bowling also. You know, Bumrah comes back, Harshal Patel is there. I haven't seen the squad fully, but I suspect Ravindra Jadeja is there. And,
No, he's not.
You know, Jadeja's not there.
He's not. I think because of injury, so
Okay,
he's unfortunately not being a part of the squad.
Okay, Akshar. So I'm just looking at the squad. And Akshar Patel is there. So yeah, they've got these. They do have an attack that is probably, you know, best attacks in the world. Probably it's out of India and Pakistan. Probably I would say at the moment, even in Australian conditions. So they've got the bowlers there. I'm just surprised about the batting front. I think probably they're being a little bit conservative. Sri Lanka obviously building a team for the future. India in a very different stage. They have all these great batters who perhaps they think deserve a final World Cup. So that's the way they've gone about it.
We've got India also playing almost 6 T20s before the World Cup. I think they have a series against Australia. They have a series against South Africa, which is basically coming up. And I think Pakistan is playing a series against England before the World Cup. But is Sri Lanka doing anything, or are we just chilling till the World Cup?
Well, Sri Lanka have to play the qualifiers.
Right.
So they will go early and play those matches. They'll have a couple of practice games before the qualifiers, then the qualifiers. And they'll have, provided that they qualify for the tournament. It's not, by the way, it is not guaranteed that Sri Lanka will play the main draw of the World Cup. They could still, I think they play Namibia first, and I can't remember who else is in their group. They'll have a few matches going in. They probably won't have the kind of match practice that India and Pakistan have organized, but the qualifiers will help, provided that they get through them and win those matches. And you expect them to after this kind of win. I think it's they are, I think, in a little bit of limbo in between until then.
I feel though that Australia is cooking up some nasty surprises, because I wouldn't put it past them for one thing, and they could be deadly. And everybody's focus is on India, Pakistan, and
Australia being the defending champions.
Of
the T20 World Cup.
No, for sure. I think they have. I mean, between Adam Zampa, Stark, Cummins. They have a spectacular attack themselves. I think you absolutely cannot rule them out for being a top title contender again, especially on home turf. They played those guys play so many Big Bash League matches on all these grounds. They have so much experience now playing T20s all around the world, and Australian players get picked up by every T20 league. They have kind of intimate knowledge of all of their opponents. So absolutely think that they're one of the favorite teams going in. I think probably the Pakistan attack and the India attack are better, but the Australia batting order is very, very strong. Finch and Warner at the top, and you've got Marsh and the likes of Raids coming in lower down, Stoinis. They've just got so much firepower. Maxwell. So it's going to be hard to beat them.
Andrew, getting back to Sri Lanka's win in the Asia Cup, honestly speaking, of course, it's rejuvenated the country because clearly we needed something like this after the shitstorm we've been going through for the last couple of months or so. Clearly changed things around. But honestly, how important is this win for Sri Lanka cricket per se?
Yeah, I mean, it was very... not just this win, but the last few months has been really important to see a turnaround in the team. I think the test team has begun. The process had begun with the test team a little bit earlier, and they'd started to put performances together. But limited overs teams hadn't, and to see them first, get that win in the ODIs against Australia. and now really turning things around in the T20 format. It was really vital. It's been such a long time since Sri Lanka won a major trophy. I think it's been the last one they won was their T20 World Cup in 2014. So it's been 8 years, and since then they've been pretty trash. Let's be honest. The 2016 World Cup and even even last year's T20 World Cup and then the 2019 one in between. They weren't really semi-final contenders in any of those. So they've been quite poor given the standards that the previous Sri Lanka teams had set. From 2007 to 2014, Sri Lanka made 5 or 6 finals and were maybe the best limited overs, most consistent limited overs team in the world.
Right.
So compared to those standards, there had been a huge decline, and it was nice to see them turn it around and see them turn a corner, and for it to seem like a corner that had been properly turned rather than kind of forced on. Now it feels like they've actually got players now. It's not as if they were so reliant on Charita Salanka, for example, who was the big find of that T20 World Cup, that they needed him. They needed big runs out of him to have a successful Asia Cup campaign. They found runs elsewhere when he went out of form, which is really solid. And when Waninda Hasaranga wasn't getting wickets, they found wickets elsewhere. So those are the kind of really positive things that the collective is now seems a little stronger. They're not just reliant on 1 or 2 star players, and even when the star players have off days or off tournaments, they can still win matches.
I know the selectors obviously have been working with a plan, looking at, for example, maybe 2 years or 3 years from the time they put this team together. Do you feel that the win in the Asia Cup has sort of thrown the spanner in the works right now, that they need to sort of, speed up the process, so to say? Are we getting ahead of ourselves, thinking that now we have a chance at the T20 World Cup because of the performances, or were we supposed to progress gradually?
I think it's important to be realistic. I think Australia is such a different challenge from playing in Asia, and a lot of these players, it'll be their first time playing in Australia. So it's very much a young team, that kind of can build up to the future. They've got a lot of cricketing years between the 11 of them.
For sure.
So I wouldn't kind of put a lot of eggs in the World Cup basket for now. I wouldn't, I think it's important to see the overall long-term development of the team through. There'll be, I think next year there is a ODI World Cup in India, for example. I think that's maybe a more realistic chance.
Yeah.
They could surprise us as they did in the Asia Cup. But it's important to not kind of put that kind of crazy pressure on a team that's just started winning. I think whatever the long-term development is, that should be allowed to happen rather than chasing kind of the short-terms.
Yeah. Andrew, I think fortunately that despite all of the pressure that the public love to put on the cricket team, the cricket team themselves don't seem to be too flustered about it.
Yeah.
The way they conducted themselves throughout this tournament, even losing the first match really badly, and yesterday, I mean, being 58 for 5 wickets. At no point did we see them really lose their cool. I mean, they didn't get too flustered. And I think that's a really, really good sign for, of things to come.
Yeah, I mean, they've done that right through the tournament. They fought their way back from very, very hairy situations against Bangladesh, against Afghanistan, when Afghanistan's batting was going absolutely bonkers, and it looked like they were going to score 200 plus in Sharjah, and then the death bowlers pulled them back. And against India as well. At one point, Rohit Sharma, who probably still, there are Sri Lankan bowlers who still have nightmares about that 264
Yes.
and the havoc that he can wreak. And he and Surya Kumar Yadav were going really well at one point, and Sri Lanka managed to pull that innings back as well. So there have been lots of moments in this tournament where it's taken a lot of mettle, taken a lot of very clear and very confident thinking, and a refusal to be rattled by much bigger name and much more kind of informed opposition. So yeah, I think that's been a huge positive as well. They were never overawed by the trend. Again, perhaps the fact that people didn't expect that much of them helps. They're not going into a tournament with people expecting them to win it. They're just expecting, the public is just expecting them to put up a fight, and then they won most of those fights, and they got through. So it's I think it's a team that's just figuring out how to win, figuring out how to get through these difficult spots. We'll see how they go. I think the signs are good for now.
We do have another question coming in from Sarit. How big of a role does the crowd play in the performance of the players?
I think you have to ask the players that. I mean, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to play. I think it changes from player to player. Some players really thrive in that kind of big kind of like melting pot, like the huge stadium. They're kind of like big match players. Someone like Wanindu is, I would expect, is someone who thrives on the kind of atmosphere around him. But there are probably others who prefer, something a bit more chilled out. So I think it probably changes from player to player. This team seems to have, between Wanindu Hasaranga, Chamika Karunaratne, and a couple of others. Even Dasun Shanaka, I think, likes a big, like a big stadium atmosphere. But yeah, I think that's one that you'd have to. For example, I've seen like Kusal Mendes literally have fights with the spectators on the while he's fielding on the bound. It's such a hard question to answer that because it affects everyone in different ways.
Well, I'll ask you another question. I don't know how difficult this one's going to be, but in terms of this win percentage that comes on ESPNcricinfo, right? I mean, where do you guys get those numbers from? Where do you get
Even after India had lost, there was still a 10% chance of India winning.
I'm not sure about whether that was the case after, but no. I mean, generally, what it comes down to is history and a lot of factors go into it, including kind of the players' performances on those kinds of pitches, at those kinds of venues, in those kinds of match situations. So there's about 36 factors that go into that.
So Andrew, it's an algorithm that picks it, is it? It's an algorithm that picks it.
Yes, it's an algorithm that picks it. And I think, I mean, I know it's a place that I work for, so I'm obviously going to defend it. But I think it's generally been pretty spot on. The Sri Lanka fought back through a lot of hard situations in the series.
Yeah,
they were in situations where they should have lost a lot of times.
True,
yes,
and that's not the algorithm's fault. That's just the way cricket is. That's credit to the way. That's credit to the way that the team played in the end.
That's true.
To fight back from all those situations.
Andrew, in your opinion, like what's the percentages that these things have played? Like strategy, talent, and luck.
I would say luck was the least important one in this tournament. They had a little bit of luck. I think Kusal Mendes had like a lot of luck in that match against Afghanistan, was it, where he got dropped like 2 or 3 times. That was probably the one really lucky kind of like break that Sri Lanka got. Yesterday we saw them get some bad breaks. Like for example, Iftikhar Ahmed, was caught behind in the power play, didn't get picked up by the umpire, and then the players didn't review it. So that was a bad break. Barnaby got dropped a couple of times.
We had 2 drop catches going our way.
Yeah, but I would actually give Barnaby credit for those, because if you look at the shots that he played, there was a lot of power in those shots. Those balls went very high.
Right.
And Shadab Khan is Pakistan's best fielder. And if he's dropping them, it's a tough catch. Like if he... yes, Shadab did bump into was Asif Ali, I think, on the deep mid wicket boundary. That was probably luck. I'm not gonna lie. But then also that was also a tough catch because it went so high. It didn't go the distance, but it's something like Barnacle middled it. He just middled it the wrong way and it just went up. So sometimes you hit balls in ways that are really difficult to catch also. So I wouldn't really put that 100% down to luck. So luck I think was the least important thing. maybe they got lucky with the tosses, and when they needed to win tosses and chase games, and get that confidence in them before they could win a match batting first. Maybe that was where the luck played a role. Elsewhere, I think, maybe Andrew Fernando middling those shots. There was a little bit of luck in that Bangladesh match. Data, I won't say too much because I haven't talked to the data analysts since, so I'm hoping to catch up with them soon. But I suspect that data played a significant role, given how obviously they were instructing players on the field. Yeah. And I know that there are players within this team who are quite keen on data, and I suspect that Chris Silverwood has been driving that also. Has been driving the data kind of side of things, having worked with England before this. And what was the other one? Skill? Was it skill or talent?
Skill. Yeah, talent. Yeah.
There was a lot of talent on display. You can't. Doesn't matter how good your data is. Dilshan Madhushankar has to come in and bowl really well to get the results that he did in this series. Bhanuka Rajapaksa has to bat really well. He had some good matchups go for him, but he still had to bat outstandingly well. So I think there was a lot of skill involved as well. And the thing is that several players performed to the high kind of like standards of their skill extent all at the same time. And that was the really pleasing thing. It wasn't as if like there was one batter who,
correct.
Like, for example, 2009 T20 World Cup, Dilshan, carried Sri Lanka right through that tournament.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I'm glad it's
like
not
that.
the case.
Yeah, it makes Sri Lanka harder to bring down. It means that other teams have to plan for a variety of challenges,
correct,
rather than just look for this kind of one big name or two or three big names. When Kumar Dilshan and Mahela were playing the top 3 or top 4, once they got through that top 4, a lot of teams felt very comfortable. Whereas this team, it's not like that. They can get through top 3, top 4, but then there are other challenges to come lower down the order, and we saw that yesterday.
Yeah. In yesterday's case, the top 5.
Yeah.
Guess what happened? No, I just I have to ask this, right? How miserable does England feel right now, having got rid of Chris Silverwood, and this man comes here and does this?
I actually saw a tweet from them yesterday congratulating them.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I think there are, sometimes coaches are not good fits for teams for different reasons. For example, they might have found someone who was a better fit for the place that their team was in. True. I think right now it seems like Chris Silverwood is the right guy for the place that this Sri Lanka team is in its progress, in its kind of evolution. Mickey Arthur was probably exactly the right guy to have when Arthur was here too. And I think it's clear that the players that he kind of developed under his watch have now become really good kind of world-beating players. And it's probably right that someone like Silverwood comes in and takes the baton from him. Coaching is one of those things where you're giving like 10-15% improvement on the team.
Yeah.
And also some of the things that you do in a team are not the fruits of that are not going to be known for years to come. And it's someone else who comes in and kind of reaps the benefits. Graham Ford wasn't the coach when Sri Lanka won the 2014 T20 World Cup final, but yet he'd done all the groundwork leading up to it.
True.
And Paul Farbrace got to come in and kind of be the coach when Sri Lanka won a T20 World Cup. So coaching is not particularly in cricket, it's not quite that simple. There's a lot that goes into it, and a lot that happens behind the scenes that you have to think about when you think about the impact of coaching.
Yeah, but I think credit to Chris Silverwood and Mickey Arthur at the end of the day that the team is so tightly knit. I wish we just obviously hold on to it this way and keep going forward, because there's so much cricket that's actually coming up. It looks like we're playing a World Cup every year.
Yeah, how did this happen?
Because of COVID.
Yeah. But you know, the interaction with Chris Silverwood and the team and how the team behaved, very, very reminiscent of the 1996 World Cup winning team, right?
Yeah.
That same kind of mojo, same kind of vibe, you know, same kind of chemistry is back again, you know, and I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, this looks a bit different. I mean, I think honestly, it's a collective. It's the exuberance of youth all coming together at the same time, so to say, and they all like to have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So, and it's a big gang of machangs.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's a whole bunch of friends, you know. Actually, I feel like, you know, you could have played a nice little softball cricket challenge with this team.
Yes, exactly, and also looks like it's a rapport that guys don't get too offended if they are, you know, shouted in filth or whatever. You know, so that's how it is. I mean, I think that's what's really working so far for the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think there does seem to be a lot of camaraderie, and it probably helps that they're roughly the same age. A lot of them, they're not too far. There are no huge elder statesmen. There are no huge egos in this team, as far as I can see.
Right.
One of the biggest kind of big name player is someone who's very, very, you know, the way he runs down balls in the field to save runs for his teammates. You know, you gotta love that kind of commitment to the field from someone who'll earn his place in the team for the next 3 years without doing anything. You know, he just has to bowl, but he just is so committed to and it's those kinds of players that set the tone. You know, it's him, it's Dasun Shanaka, it's the players who are really successful and who are already in kind of positions that other players look up to, and them just being that committed to a team cause is it kind of like creates that team culture, that kind of like play for each other, play for the collective kind of culture, which, you know, other teams like New Zealand, for example, you know, have famously done over the last few years, and Sri Lanka kind of beginning to have that as well. We went through a period where Sri Lanka were playing very selfishly, by the way. You know?
Yeah.
There was, you know, that 2020 kind of period where there were a lot of you know, bad innings from really good players where they would soak up too many balls. But you don't see that in this team. You know, that Afghanistan match was a perfect example. You know, 4 really important 30s, and everyone got out attacking. Yesterday was another great example. You know, people were down and out, but they still attacked. It wasn't about averages. It was about how do we get Sri Lanka to a winning total.
Yeah.
And that kind of commitment is really hard.
Rightio, we're into the final 2 minutes of the show, and we've completely dissected Sri Lanka's innings, and I think now the guys are arriving tomorrow morning. Sri Lanka Cricket have arranged a massive parade for them, along with the netball team at the same time. So, and
congratulations to the netball team.
Congratulations to the netball team. Yep. So great performance. What a Sunday it was. I mean, how rare is that, being Asian champions in 2 different sports altogether?
Yeah, absolutely. And how superstitious are we? You know, actually, I actually watched the Sri Lankan innings after today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. Because I thought mango gila balanda gila jinx karala. Adagina nanda be.
So I don't know if this kills the excitement. I live right behind a right behind a 5-star hotel, and so they had a massive giant screen up in the pool side, right? So at 56 for 5 or something like that, I stepped out. I went out, right? And I can hear the commentaries. And the funny thing was, their feed was about 3 seconds faster or earlier than what you get on the TV. Right. So every time they screamed, I knew that was a wicket. So it was so much fun in that way. But killed the excitement. But I stood outside the house for 30 overs because things were working.
I tell you, how superstitious are we?
I mean, people are you superstitious, Andrew? Are you superstitious?
I'm not at all. I'm frequently accused of jinxing things on Twitter because I like talk up the player when they're doing well and then they'll get out, and people will like people will absolutely nail me for it, but I keep doing it because I don't think that it's a real thing.
I mean, we would like to think
to
that
each
we
their
are
own,
helping the cause.
You guys do you. You know, I think we all want to feel like we have some role in the magic.
True, that's true.
I think we all want to feel like we contributed something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Even though we're not there. But
we're there in spirit,
All right, Andrew, just before we let you go, I think we're going to get into our poll right now.
Yeah.
And we'll ask you the same question before the answers come up right after this.
Welcome to the universe of the Raz, where you explore and discover whatever you want, whatever you need. All you can imagine is on your feet. When miles are abridged, happiness is unlocked. Discover your Daraz.
All right, here we are back again. So today's poll was very simple, yes or no answer. This was it. Was the 2022 Asia Cup win reminiscent of the 1996 World Cup win? Yes or no answers only. And you were supposed to WhatsApp your answers to our hotline number 077-669-1590. What do you think, Andrew?
I think it's really hard to compare those two things. You know, 96 was a very, very different team. There was a team of like very senior batters who've been playing for a long time, and perhaps in the sense that they were both underdogs. I think that's where the similarities started. But like I think even all these things considered, 96 was still bigger underdogs by probably a distance than even the Asia Cup. You know, Sri Lanka had at least won 5 Asia Cups before. Winning a World Cup was out of this world. So I wouldn't put it on that kind of level, but I can see why people kind of make
drawing
that
comparisons.
Kind of try to draw the comparison, even if it isn't quite there.
I feel that, you know, as long as we organize the tournaments, we don't have to play in Sri Lanka. As long as Sri Lanka organizes the tournament, I'm sure everybody's missed it. You know, 1996, we organized the tournament. To 2022, we organized the tournament.
And in a way, you know, in 1996, Australia and West Indies refused to come to Sri Lanka.
Absolutely.
This time, everybody, including Sri Lanka, refused to come to Sri Lanka. So
you know, the conditions have to be just right.
We'll host it somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what?
Let's find out what our answers are today on the show. The poll says 51%.
Okay. So
51%. So yeah. So
even split, I'd say. Yeah.
Yes, it was reminiscent of 1996 World Cup win. All right, fantastic win for Sri Lanka. Looking forward to seeing the team back at home tomorrow. Lots of fun, I suppose, and looking forward for the World Cup. Andrew, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
We'll try and hopefully catch up with you before the World Cup in that case.
All right. Cool, guys. Take it easy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Care.
Andrew Fidel Fernando on the show with us, of course, ESPNcricinfo correspondent, Sri Lankan correspondent, giving us basically the lowdown.
And absolutely, and fantastic author. Have you read his book?
Of course I have.
Fabulous.
Of course I have. And his writing, out of this world.
Yeah.
People wait, I know for a fact, people wait till his articles come up.
Yeah.
People tweet him, when is it coming out? But great. Andrew, thank you so much. It's time for us to basically say goodbye for tonight.
That's right. Tomorrow we'll be back with another fantastic guest who will also join us on video call.
That's right. Till tomorrow night. Have a great Monday night, and looking forward to seeing the Sri Lankan cricket and the netball team tomorrow morning. Till then, good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.